there's a question that haunts you in the quiet moments. Not when you're busy, not when you're distracted, but in those still hours when there's nothing left to hide behind. Why am I here? Maybe you've felt it, that hollow ache that no achievement can fill, that gnawing sense that something essential is missing, even when everything looks fine on the surface. You work, you try, you push forward, but somewhere deep inside, you wonder if any of it actually matters. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the Nazi concentration camps, discovered something profound in humanity's darkest hour. He found that those who survived weren't necessarily the strongest, the youngest, or the healthiest. They were the ones who had a why, a reason to endure. Frankl wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." And that's what this is about. Not escaping pain, not achieving some impossible state of permanent happiness, but discovering the one thing that makes everything, even suffering, worth it. The existential vacuum. Let me tell you what's really happening. You're experiencing what Frankl called the existential vacuum, a profound sense of meaninglessness that's become the defining condition of modern life. You have more comfort than any generation in history, more options, more freedom, and yet you feel empty. It's not depression exactly. It's not anxiety, though those might be symptoms. It's something deeper, a fundamental lack of purpose that no amount of success, pleasure, or distraction can fill. You chase accomplishments, thinking they'll satisfy you. You pursue relationships, hoping they'll complete you. You seek experiences, believing they'll fulfill you. But nothing lasts. The high fades. The emptiness returns. And here's what you need to understand. This feeling isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility. Frankl witnessed this in the camps. Men who had lost everything, their families, their possessions, their very names. Some collapsed into despair. Others discovered something unshakable. The difference, not their circumstances. Everyone faced the same hell. The difference was meaning. Those who found a reason to survive, a task to complete, a person to see again, a story to tell, maintained their humanity even in the midst of horror. Those who couldn't find meaning perished, often before their bodies gave out. Their will to live simply evaporated. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You don't need to be in a concentration camp to lose your will. You can lose it in comfort, in safety, in a life that looks perfect from the outside. When you lack a fundamental sense of purpose, everything becomes mechanical. You go through the motions. You do what's expected. But you're not really living. You're just existing. The existential vacuum manifests in 3 ways. First, endless distraction. You fill every moment with noise, screens, busyness, anything to avoid facing the question, what am I actually living for? Second, conformity. You do what others do, want what others want, become who others expect you to be, not because you choose it, but because you don't know what else to do. Third, aggression. Anger at the world, at yourself, at the emptiness. Not because you're a bad person, but because you're suffocating in meaninglessness. Sound familiar? The meaning of suffering. Now here's where most people get it backwards. You think the goal is to eliminate suffering, to find a life so perfect, so comfortable, that you never hurt again. But Frankl discovered something that will change how you see everything. Suffering ceases to be suffering the moment it finds meaning. Read that again. Let it sink in. It's not about whether you suffer, you will. Life guarantees that. It's about whether your suffering means something. In the camps, Frankl watched two men respond to identical horrors in completely different ways. One man, having lost his wife and children, saw no point in going on. He had nothing left, no reason to endure another day of brutality. Another man, also having lost his family, made a different choice. He decided his suffering could honor their memory, that surviving and telling the world what happened could give their deaths meaning. That love, even for those who were gone, could sustain him. Same circumstances, completely different experience of suffering. This is the key. You cannot always control what happens to you, but you can always control what it means. Pain is unavoidable, but meaningless suffering is optional. When your suffering serves a purpose, when it builds something, protects someone, teaches you, honors something greater than yourself, it transforms. It's no longer just pain. It becomes a sacrifice, a test, a crucible. And you become someone who can endure it. Frankl wrote, "In some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering. At the moment it finds a meaning, such as the meaning of a sacrifice." But here's what you must understand. Meaning doesn't appear magically. It doesn't arrive like some cosmic reward for good behavior. Meaning must be discovered, or created, or chosen, and that's entirely on you. Change starts with awareness. Like, subscribe, and share if you're ready to grow consciously. The will to meaning. Most psychology tells you that humans are driven by the will to pleasure. We seek what feels good. Or the will to power. We seek control, status, dominance. Frankl said no. These are not our primary motivations. They're just what we pursue when we've lost touch with what really drives us. The deepest human drive is the will to meaning. Not happiness, not success, not comfort. Meaning. The desire to know that your life matters, that your existence contributes to something beyond yourself, that when you're gone, something will remain, because you were here. This is what gets you out of bed when everything hurts. This is what carries you through loss, failure, and disappointment. This is what makes you unbreakable. Not because nothing can hurt you, but because your purpose is bigger than your pain. Think about the people you admire most, the ones who've accomplished extraordinary things or endured extraordinary suffering. Were they comfortable? Often, no. Were they happy all the time? Definitely not. But did they have a reason, a mission, a calling, a why that drove them forward? Absolutely. Viktor Frankl was imprisoned, starved, degraded. He lost his wife, his parents, his manuscript, everything that mattered to him. And yet, he later said that those years in the camps were the most meaningful of his life. Not because the suffering was good. It was horrific. But because in that crucible, he discovered what humans are truly capable of when they have a reason to endure. He saw that a person stripped of everything, freedom, dignity, possessions, could still choose their attitude, still find meaning, still remain human. This is your power too. Right now, you might feel lost, purposeless, like you're drifting through a life that doesn't fit. But that feeling, that existential discomfort, is actually trying to tell you something. It's your will to meaning crying out, demanding more, refusing to accept a life of mere survival or shallow pleasures. Listen to it. 3 paths to meaning. So how do you find meaning? How do you fill that vacuum? This is the question everyone asks, and most people expect some vague, mystical answer, as if meaning descends from the heavens when you meditate enough or read the right book. But Frankl was a scientist. He observed, he analyzed, he identified patterns. And what he discovered was this: meaning isn't one thing. It's not a single destination you reach and then you're done. It's a dynamic process, something you encounter, create, and choose in different ways throughout your life. Frankl identified 3 primary paths to meaning, 3 doors through which purpose enters your existence. And here's what's powerful: you don't have to choose just one. These paths intersect, overlap, and reinforce each other. Let me break them down for you. First, creating a work or doing a deed. This is the path of contribution, of leaving something behind, of making your mark on the world, no matter how small. Listen carefully. This doesn't mean you need to write the great American novel, or build a billion-dollar company, or cure cancer. That's the lie our culture tells you, that only grand achievements count, that your contribution only matters if millions of people recognize it. But Frankl saw meaning in the simplest acts. In the camps, a man who used his last bit of strength to comfort a dying stranger found meaning. A prisoner who shared his meager rations with someone weaker found meaning. A woman who sang quietly to keep others' spirits alive found meaning. Your work doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to change the world. But it must matter to you. It must feel like you're putting something into the world that wouldn't exist without you. Maybe it's your art, paintings that no one buys, poems that no one publishes, music that only you and a few friends ever hear. If creating it gives you purpose, it's enough. Maybe it's your business, not because it makes you rich, but because you're solving a problem that matters to you, because you're building something that reflects your values. Maybe it's the way you raise your children, the patience you bring, the wisdom you share, the example you set. No one gives you awards for this. There's no promotion. But decades from now, your influence will live on in who they become. Maybe it's how you care for aging parents, how you show up for friends in crisis, how you teach, mentor, or guide others. Maybe it's the garden you tend, the meals you cook, the community you build, the kindness you consistently show. The key is this: you're creating something, you're contributing something, you're acting in the world rather than just reacting to it. And here's what happens when you find this path. You stop feeling like life is happening to you and start feeling like you're happening to life. You're not just consuming, you're producing. You're not just taking up space, you're shaping it. You're not just passing through, you're leaving footprints. Ask yourself, what can I create or contribute that aligns with who I am? What would I build, make, or do, even if no one ever applauded? What feels like my work in this world? Second, experiencing something or encountering someone. This is the path of receptivity, of opening yourself to what already exists, of allowing yourself to be moved, changed, and transformed by beauty, truth, and connection. This is where most people get confused. They think meaning only comes from doing, from accomplishment and productivity. But Frankl understood something profound. There is deep meaning in simply experiencing life fully, in being present to what's already here. This is the meaning found in love, in friendship, in beauty, in nature, in article, in moments of genuine connection that remind you what it means to be alive. And let me be clear, this isn't about shallow pleasures or fleeting entertainment. This isn't scrolling through social media looking for dopamine hits. This isn't binge-watching shows or collecting experiences like trophies. This is about deep encounters, about allowing yourself to be genuinely moved, about vulnerability, about presence. It's the meaning you find when you truly see another person, not as they serve your needs, but as they actually are. When you listen without planning your response, when you offer presence without expecting anything in return. It's the love you give, even when it's not returned. Even when it's difficult, even when it costs you something. It's sitting with an elderly relative and really listening to their stories, not out of obligation, but with genuine curiosity and reverence for their lived experience. It's the moment you witness a sunset and actually stop, not to photograph it for Instagram, but to let it fill you with awe, to feel small and connected to something vast. It's standing in front of a piece of art that moves you to tears for reasons you can't quite explain. It's hearing music that resonates so deeply, it feels like it's speaking directly to your soul. It's holding your child and being fully present to that weight, that trust, that responsibility. Not while checking your phone, not while thinking about work, just there. Here's what Frankl discovered in the camps. His wife, Tilly, was already dead by the time he arrived at Auschwitz, though he didn't know it. Every day, as he did back-breaking labor, as he starved, as he froze, he had conversations with her in his mind. He imagined what he would tell her, how she would respond, the love they shared. He later wrote, "I understood how a man who has nothing left in this world may still know bliss, be it only for a brief moment, in the contemplation of his beloved." His wife was gone, but his love for her wasn't. That love, that capacity to connect deeply with another human being, gave his suffering meaning. It reminded him of his humanity when everything was designed to destroy it. The love was real, even though she was no longer there. The meaning was real, even though the relationship had ended. This is the power of this second path. No one can take it from you. You can lose possessions, status, health, even the people you love. But your capacity to love, to appreciate beauty, to connect deeply, that remains yours. Ask yourself, who and what do I love deeply enough that it gives my life purpose? What experiences move me so profoundly that they remind me why existence matters? When was the last time I allowed myself to be truly present to beauty, connection, or love? Third, the attitude we take toward unavoidable suffering. This is the most profound path, and the one most people completely miss. It's also the most challenging, because it requires you to face something our culture desperately tries to deny. Suffering is inevitable. Pain is unavoidable. Loss is guaranteed. You can optimize your life. You can make good choices. You can be healthy, wealthy, and wise. And you will still suffer. You will still face circumstances beyond your control. You will still experience pain that no amount of preparation can prevent. This is where most philosophies fail you. They promise that if you just do the right things, you can avoid suffering. They sell you the fantasy of a pain-free life. But Frankl offered something different, something more honest, something more powerful. He said, when you cannot change your circumstances, when suffering is inevitable, you can still choose what it means. You can still choose your attitude toward it. This isn't toxic positivity. This isn't just think positive or everything happens for a reason or any of that shallow nonsense. This is about dignity, about agency, about maintaining your humanity even when everything is trying to destroy it. In the camps, Frankl watched two prisoners with identical circumstances respond in completely different ways. One man, sick and starving, gave up. He stopped trying. He lay down in his bunk and waited to die. His body was alive, but something essential in him had already perished. He had become, in his own mind, just a victim, a thing that suffering happened to, with no power, no choice, no meaning. Another man, equally sick and equally starving, made a different choice. He couldn't change that he was in the camp. He couldn't change that he was suffering, but he could change how he carried that suffering. He chose to see it as a test, a challenge, an opportunity to prove to himself what he was made of. He helped others when he could. He maintained his cleanliness and dignity, even when it would have been easier to give up. He chose to suffer well. Same hell, completely different experience. And here's what you need to understand. This isn't about the suffering itself. It's about what you do with it. You can let it destroy you. You can let it make you bitter, angry, resentful. You can let it convince you that you're a victim, that life is meaningless, that there's no point. Or you can let it shape you. You can let it make you stronger, wiser, more compassionate. You can let it teach you things that comfort never could. You can let your pain be pointless, just random bad luck that happened to you. Or you can give it purpose. You can let it honor someone, teach you something, build your character, deepen your empathy, prepare you for something you'll need to do later. Think about this. Every person you admire, who has great wisdom, great depth, great compassion, they didn't get that way through an easy life. They got it through suffering that they transformed into meaning. The parent who loses a child and starts a foundation that prevents other families from experiencing the same loss. That's transforming unavoidable suffering into meaning. The addict who gets sober and then spends years helping others recover. That's transforming unavoidable suffering into meaning. The person diagnosed with a terminal illness who chooses to spend their remaining time with grace, teaching others how to face death with dignity. That's transforming unavoidable suffering into meaning. The survivor of abuse who becomes a therapist helping other survivors. That's transforming unavoidable suffering into meaning. You cannot escape pain, but you can refuse to let it be meaningless. Frankl wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." And that's the gift hidden in unavoidable suffering. It strips away everything superficial and forces you to confront who you really are. It asks you, will you let this destroy you? Or will you let it forge you into something stronger? This is your power. Always. In every situation, no matter what. Even when you have no control over what happens to you, you still have control over what it means to you. Ask yourself, what suffering am I currently facing that I've been treating as meaningless? What if I chose to let it teach me something? What if I decided that this pain could serve a purpose? What kind of person could I become if I learned what this suffering is trying to teach me? These three paths aren't separate. They work together. You create meaningful work while experiencing deep love for what you do and the people you do it for. And you face the inevitable challenges with an attitude that transforms obstacles into growth. You build something that matters. You connect deeply with others and with beauty. And you suffer well when suffering is unavoidable. This is how you fill the existential vacuum. This is how you become someone who cannot be broken by circumstances. Not because nothing hurts you, but because everything you experience, even pain, is woven into a larger tapestry of meaning that you're actively creating, living authentically. Here's what changes when you find your meaning. You stop asking, will this make me happy? And start asking, does this align with my purpose? You stop being paralyzed by every setback because your why is bigger than your obstacles. You stop comparing yourself to others because your path is uniquely yours. You become, in Frankl's words, someone who knows their task. And once you know your task, once you've found your meaning, nothing can truly break you. You might bend, you might hurt, you might fail 1,000 times. But you cannot be destroyed because your purpose isn't conditional on circumstances. It exists regardless of what happens to you. This is the secret the world doesn't tell you. You don't need to achieve some perfect life to feel fulfilled. You don't need to eliminate all suffering to find peace. You need to know why you're here, what you're living for, what makes your existence necessary. And once you know that, everything changes. The same job that felt meaningless becomes purposeful when you know why you're doing it. The same struggles that felt unbearable become challenges you're willing to face when you know what they're building toward. The same loneliness that felt crushing becomes solitude you can inhabit when you know you're working on something that matters. Viktor Frankl emerged from hell not bitter, but with a message. Life doesn't owe you happiness, but it does offer you meaning, if you're brave enough to find it. So stop waiting for someone to give you permission to matter. Stop waiting for perfect conditions to pursue what calls to you. Stop waiting for suffering to end before you decide your life has purpose. Decide now. Decide today. What is your why? What would make your suffering worthwhile? What would you endure anything for? Find that. Hold on to that. Let that guide you. Because in the end, the question isn't, why is life so hard? The question is, what makes it worth it? Only you can answer that. And once you do, you become unbreakable. This resonates with you. Write in the comments, I choose meaning. Thanks for watching. If this video gave you something to think about, drop a like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it too.